Oh, you got a microphone today, John? Is that normal? Oh, wow. It's a huge room.
Great. I guess just the first question. What's your update on Brandon, and do you feel like you'll get him at least maybe for one of the games this week?
That's a good question. I knew that was going to be asked. He did some non-contact stuff yesterday, and so we'll see how things go today. And he felt good, so that's a good sign. And we'll see how things go today. I've not talked to Trevor today or this morning, but I would assume if there was an issue, Trevor would have called right away. So I think there's a chance for sure. Certainly feel better about Saturday than Wednesday, but there's definitely a chance he could play depending on how things go.
Staying on that topic, what does the ramp-up process look like for something like this? It's not a bone, it's not a ligament, it's your appendix. I mean, what does that ramp-up process look like?
It's not uncharted territory, but we actually had the same thing 2 years ago with a 7'3" kid, ironically, except his exploded, and obviously Brandon's did not. But, he didn't do anything for the first week, just nothing. And I think I even said in one of the post-game, when we were on the road to Arizona and Arizona State, because he made that trip, how do you feel? Where do you feel pain? Well, when I get out of bed in the morning, right, you're basically doing a crunch or a sit-up. And then just when I sneeze or if I cough, that's where he had the pain. And obviously he was doing nothing else, right, physically. So then when we got back on Tuesday, we got back late Monday night, but on Tuesday he started doing some physical activity, simple things like we were in practice and he was walking stairs in the Huntsman. Yeah, so he was literally walking up, walking down, walking up, and kind of, can you run a little bit? Can you rebound? So it's just a step-by-step process. Then they, between Trevor Jameson, our athletic trainer, and Logan Ogden, our strength and conditioning coach, those two work hand in hand in so much of what we do. So it's really those two getting together with Brandon and just, okay, what's the next step? What can we do next? How far can we keep pushing you where you're, where there's going to be some discomfort probably, but yet you're discomfortably comfortable, if that makes sense. And so he's worked his way up on, I know he did some workout stuff like just one, with Trevor and Logan on throughout late last week, like some light lifting. His arms looked like defined, and you could tell he just got out of the weight room. And then when we threw him out there yesterday with some of our other guys. So hopefully today we can see if he can go live or not. And I think we're going to attempt that and see if he can, if he feels good, then I think we'll be able to roll tomorrow.
Just to follow that up, obviously in the last 6 weeks, he's been through some things that are a little unorthodox, I guess. Yeah. Is there like a mental component to this thing where he has to get ramped up from that perspective just because, again, it's not a bone, it's not a ligament, it's kind of a freak occurrence?
He hasn't indicated that, and he looks super excited to get out there and play. And even after the game against USC, we kind of went around the locker room and asked some things, and Brandon jumped in there right away and said a few things, positive and some things that we got to keep working on, right? And so, but he had a vigor to him, like he wants to get out there and play. And he hasn't shown any hesitancy. I think he really wants to play and be back as soon as possible. And, obviously his talent level speaks for itself, but he's a smart player and he's a tough player. And I know there was some dialogue about some things before we got here that I'd heard, and he's displayed nothing but toughness and grit since we've been here in every way, shape, and form, both mentally and physically. So I was really curious, though, because it is a different type of injury, how soon he would really want, how eager he'd be to get back. And he's shown nothing but, like, I want to play. I want to play as soon as possible. If I'm cleared, I'm going to give it everything I've got and go from there. Now, obviously, his conditioning, you just wonder how that's going to be, not only just because the ankle from late November, and he played in, 2 games? He played in all 3 games, the last one being the Manhattan game, and then obviously then he didn't play a game for 20 days, and then what did he play, 3? Oregon State, Oregon, and Washington. So he was just kind of getting back to, and then out for another 2 weeks, so or over 2 weeks. So we'll see. That's probably not going to be where he wants it to be. Obviously, anytime you get back in the lineup, there's a point of finding your rhythm and getting comfortable and getting adjusted to the speed of the game again. But he's a veteran guy, and veteran guys, you don't worry about that nearly as much. Not only is he a veteran, he's an experienced guy, and I think that'll really, really help the situation out.
Craig, the other night you said Jackson Branchley's earned playing time in practice. What has he done, maybe more specifically, to get that? And also, when you arrived, did you have to talk him into staying? He was one of the guys that didn't enter the portal, whatever. So, two questions.
So the second part of your question, no, we did not have to talk him into staying. He loves the University of Utah and everything it stands for in every way, shape, and form. His younger brother walked on for us at Utah State, but he served his mission for 2 years, and so he would have been a freshman this year. So there's some familiarity there. Second part of that question, Jackson's he's one guy that his, 7 minutes one night, 15 minutes another night, 12 minutes another night, right? And then they had a couple games he didn't play, including Washington State. And then he rolled his ankle in practice right before the Arizona trip. And just quite frankly, he just didn't look very good, like sliding and mobility. But like when you go back, and I've been back watching a lot of different things, whether it's practice or games, but he brings something that we need, like his talent level and the things that he brings to the table. So shows up every day ready to roll, right? He knows what's going on. Like he can execute things on both sides, offensively, defensively. He has a spirit to him that you can feel. He's very confident. Not cocky, confident. Like he's not afraid of anything. Plays with a level of physicality. He does his job, right? Like when you ask him to do something, he goes and does it. And so, and then he's just kind of a bigger guard that can do a lot of different things. I'm not saying he's unbelievable at certain things, but I think he just kind of does a lot of different things that check a lot of the boxes that we need. I think he makes a lot of other guys better players, just by being on the floor. And so, and then he's been on the quote unquote scout team, and he's played well. Like he's performed very well in those kind of situations. And I think, it's always interesting. You go through the year, and some guys look at scout team as like a demotion, and some guys approach it like, this is awesome, because they just get a ton of reps because they're playing like all the time. Now, it takes a lot of extra time because you got to get in there and learn their sets and learn what they're doing, and it's not always ideal. But I think it's really helped Jackson. I think it's really helped Eli. I think it's really helped Gabe. I mean, it's clearly helped those three guys. And when I think back to where they were, not so much Gabe. Gabe was just out. He was playing very well until his situation. But how much better Eli has gotten, since we started playing games in mid-November or what have you. So I would expect to see him play a lot more. Well, Jackson and Eli.
Speaking of those two, how important is it to get local kids, Utah kids, at least one or two per year on the roster, just because there's that buy-in? It looked like those two guys the other night, it hurt them when you lost. You could kind of see it on their faces.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a dream school, right? And so our experience, and you always want to recruit locally, and get the best players in your state and in your region. I think great programs do that. And so it matters. And a lot of these kids grow up dreaming of being Utes, right? Or dreaming of being an Aggie, or dreaming of being a Cougar, or whatever school, right? And if you're a California kid, it's the same. So I do think there's a certain level of that. But I don't think it's just those guys either. I think there is value when guys come in as high school. When you come right out of high school and come in, I think there's a different mindset at times that goes on, and every transfer is a little bit different, that way. But I think it's very, very important. Jay, I didn't think you'd give that mic up once you got it.
Craig, we talked a lot last week just about your team is obviously progressing. Last week was a good showing, but you're also trying to really find who you are still. How hard is that as trying to get that effort and trying to get that? Or do you feel like guys have finally settled in, or where do you feel like you're at?
I feel way more comfortable with where we're at today than we were 2 weeks ago. No question. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And for the most part, really know who we need to play. And it's the first time, when BC comes back, obviously we know Boston's out, but it would be the first time we've had our full roster since the start of the BYU game, right? 30 seconds, once Deshaun got hurt, right? And so, actually, no, Marco was out that game. So since the Boston College game. So, we finally kind of have the whole 14 guys to pick from, and so I think we have a pretty good idea of what we need to be and have a lot clearer picture of who we are and who we need to play. And I feel like we've known what to do to put guys in a position to succeed. Some guys just haven't gotten it done, and so when you have difficult times, then change it needs to happen. And other guys, to their credit, have waited their time and earned their time. I said on the post game the other night how much Gabe has earned it. He's earned it. We could have threw him in there a month ago and played a lot more minutes, but he just kept chopping wood and chipping away and doing his deal and practicing great. And now he's producing he produced at a high level last weekend, and obviously we need that to continue forward.
In the last two games, your team had missed maybe some of those easy bunnies or whatever, just right under the rim. How do you kind of help that? Is it just being sped up? Is it trying to battle that length? Where do you kind of go with that as a coach?
Yeah, finishing is something we work on, and there's a lot of ways to finish, right? Some guys teach one-footed finishes, some teach two-footed finishes. Certainly got to get your eyes up, get your shoulder square to the backboard. If you can dunk it, dunk it. If you can't, just soft touch. And certainly, specifically last weekend, and you've seen it against some of these bigger, more athletic teams, USC specific. USC is very difficult to score on in the paint. Arizona is incredibly difficult to score on in the paint. And we don't see that on a daily basis, right, in practice. Now, BC has some of that, right, but we haven't saw him, either for for a time. So when you don't see that every day, it's hard to replicate that, right? And like I told Deshaun, the other day, you got to be able to play with leverage. You got to be able to get your weight inside. You got to be able to play in balance to give yourselves a chance, right? And then you got to be confident. If you're going up and wishing and hoping, that thing ain't going in, right? If you got to be able to go up strong. You got to be able to go up confident. You got to be able to know who you're playing against. Are they jumping every time? Are they a team that's going to just brick wall you? Right? But a lot of these teams, they just go and jump at everything. And so you got to have some moxie too and have some game to you. Deshaun had an unbelievable, Booth came off screen and roll, throws it up to Deshaun. Deshaun makes an unbelievable catch. And then he got it, he gathered, this is in the second half, gathered himself, got his weight inside, went up and scored it. And then of course he flexed and then we gave up a layup the other way, but we won't talk about that. But he finished it, and that's what he told me. He was in perfect balance and perfect weight. A couple of those other times, his body's all over the place, and he's just almost he's hoping it goes in instead of being. And if you're hoping, you probably just kick it out and fight another fight. And so, you saw the one where Deshaun there was nobody around him. But when you play a team like USC, Arizona, Washington State, Washington, where they just got pogo sticks all over the place. You have one eye on the rim and your other eye, where are they at? Where are they at? And that's a legitimate factor. We had that at Utah State for 3 years, where teams are like, where is he? It's a presence. And not only, even though they can have an effect blocking the shots, but just that feeling of you feel like you got to rush because they're a little quicker, a little longer, a little more athletic at times. And so we got to continue to get better at that. Deshaun missed that one. Then Marco got the rebound, and he kind of short-armed it with his right hand. Got to be able to make those plays and finish those baskets. And if you don't have it, kick it out and go. We work on finishing every day specifically with our bigs, and most days with our guards, but we just got to keep getting better. Any other questions for Coach? All right. Thanks, Coach. Quick day today.